If you're vacationing in the Florida Keys or South Florida, you will want to closely watch Faye the next few days. And now here's Carl with the details on Faye.
Yeah, it looks like this one is on the way for Florida in one form or another, and it's difficult to say exactly what's going to happen at this point. Let's talk about what's going on right now. As of the 2 p.m. advisory, it is moving west at 16 miles an hour. The wind's 45 miles an hour, so not a terribly strong tropical system. And it's now very close to the eastern end of Cuba. Now, what you're looking at here is visible satellite imagery, and the center of circulation is actually right over here and moving along pretty quickly, again, west at 16 and away from the deeper convection or thunderstorms. And when the thunderstorms in the center are not co-located right over top of one another, then you tend not to see a whole lot of intensification. So at least in the short term here, it looks like it's not going to be doing all that well. And it's also got a lot of obstacles. You see all the land here. This is the island nation of Cuba, and you've got all this land here that it has to traverse if it does in fact move on. And to what extent it stays on or offshore is difficult to say at this point. That's going to determine how strong this thing gets. If it stays a little farther offshore over open water, then we could be talking about a hurricane after several hours or certainly into tomorrow. Let's talk about what's going on as far as the watches are concerned. And there you see we've got hurricane watches in effect in central parts of Cuba. We also have tropical storm warnings in effect across parts of Cuba and the Bahamas and getting into Jamaica as well. So large areas watching out for the possibility certainly of some very heavy rain. And in a lot of this part of the world, there's been heavy deforestation. They've really trimmed the trees all across the island of Jamaica and certainly into Cuba as well. It's also very mountainous terrain. So any kind of really heavy rain is bound to cause some serious flooding. So that's going to be the immediate concern with this system. Now beyond that, we think it's going to move up most likely more towards the northwest and then take more of a turn towards the north in response to a system in the U.S. Now the center line would take it towards the west coast of Florida. That would be towards late Monday and early Tuesday. It's also possible though that it moves farther eastward and towards South Florida, say around Miami-Dade County and Broward County. It's also possible that it stays farther westward and out into the open water of the Gulf of Mexico, in which case obviously it would have more time to intensify and get even stronger as it worked up towards the Florida Panhandle. It's also possible that it works into Florida and then moves out over the open water once again and into Georgia. So there's a wide range of possibility, and depending on how much land it interacts with, we'll see just how strong it gets. We really can't nail that down at this point, but beware of the possibility of a tropical system coming into South Florida, west coast or east coast, late Monday or getting into Tuesday. And there certainly could be wind and obviously very heavy rain and all the impacts that we associate with tropical systems. Here is the bottom line then on the system, and this is what we're thinking. The center now, of course, over the northern Caribbean. It is currently weak and disorganized, but it does have the potential to strengthen. It's going to be near Cuba, over Cuba today, late today, and early Monday, and then into Florida late Monday and Tuesday. And talking about the Atlantic Basin in general now, things are pretty quiet for the most part as we look out across the Atlantic Basin. There is a little wave that is way out over the open water of the Atlantic and a long, long way from any landmass, and this one is not going to be a problem. It's going to lift up towards the north here, and there's another one way over here near the Cape Verde Islands, and we'll pay very close attention to that.